Hello and welcome to DHub MT YouTube channel podcast brought to you by European Digital Innovation Hub and powered by MDIA, Malta Digital Innovation Authority. Our guest speaker today is Mark Bugeja. Mark serves as an R&D manager at the Institute of Tourism Studies, the ITS, focusing on sustainable tech solutions for tourism and heritage. He has continued research at the University of Malta on AI and transport automation and played a pivotal role as an XR and AI consultant for unravel for the Caravaggios at the St. John's Co-Cathedral. With a background in AI, Mark has published on generative AI, computer vision, and machine learning. A casual lecturer at the University of Malta's AI department, Mark's academic credentials include a BSc in Creative Computing, an MSc in AI, and he's currently pursuing a PhD on computer vision with application in transport management. So how do you manage all this, Mark?
Without sleeping.
This is what I'm reckoning. But you do need sleep. So
Yes.
it's very vital and important, just as much as AI is. Well, obviously, putting the jokes aside, I would ask you out of curiosity and also to explain it to our viewers, because I'm sure you can explain it better. What is XR?
So XR stands for extended reality. It is basically an umbrella term that encompasses a number of fields that includes virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. With virtual reality, we're talking about immersing yourself in a completely digital virtual world through, for example, a VR headset. When we're talking about augmented reality, we're talking about apps that you can use using your smartphone, such as, for example, Pokemon Go, where you do not directly interact with the physical and the digital, but you are superimposing digital components on the real world. Mixed reality, on the other hand, is when you superimpose the digital, but allow the digital to interact also with the physical. So there are these kind of small nuances to each one of these technologies.
I have a feeling that we're talking games here now. A lot of
Yes,
games.
games does have a
One
huge-
factor, because obviously there are others, as we've
Yeah.
previously mentioned. Let's see how AI and XR are currently being combined in the tech world. What are they being used for? Where are we seeing these two, obviously, technologies working together?
So, obviously, we've seen artificial intelligence in the past couple of years having a huge resurgence in the area. I mean, especially, for example, just recently we see ChatGPT becoming integrated in our everyday lives. When it comes to AI, specifically on how it helps with extended realities, there is the personalization aspect. So we're talking about technologies that allow you to either immerse yourself in a digital world or interact digitally through the physical world. With AI, we can create or tailor-make interactions with this digital world, which are specifically tailored for the user. So they are personalized. So this is one of the areas where AI is mostly prevalent in the sector.
What industries would you say that stand to benefit mostly from AI and XR convergence?
So there are a number of them. Obviously, if you think from an entertainment perspective, games is obviously one of them, as you
That came to mind.
rightly mentioned. But there are also other industries, for example, medical industry. There's research and there are use cases where, for example, augmented reality as well as mixed reality is being used to train medical doctors for surgery.
Wow.
There's also areas, for example, when it comes to retail. Imagine, for example, you're wearing augmented reality glasses, something like Magic Leap, for example, and you're browsing through a supermarket. For example, in my case, my daughter is highly allergic to dairy. So every time I have to go to the supermarket and we're buying something, if it's not something that we usually buy, we look at the ingredients. This usually takes a lot of time. So imagine you have these glasses, you're going through a supermarket, and it's highlighting exactly which items probably have the ingredients that you are looking for.
Oh, wow.
So this is obviously another quite useful use
Impressive.
case. Yes, there are a lot of useful use cases in this. There's also in the manufacturing industry. There's also a lot of work being done in that sector. I mean, driving, transportation, you name it, there is something that could be integrated with XR and AI.
As we've previously done podcasts before, and also we talk about safety, we've talked about safety in AI. How would you see when it comes to safety in XR now?
So, it's quite a hot topic. So there are a number of things that one must take care of.
Yes.
Right off the bat, there's the data privacy issue. Okay, so we're talking about XR. You are actually most of the time wearing a device, so it's a wearable. It's either a glasses or a headset, or using your smartphone for augmented reality. And obviously, data is being extracted, and data that has to do with the person who's using the application.
Privacy.
So there is an issue of privacy in that case. Obviously, most companies usually do take care of the data privacy. There's the agreements, etc. But there are other issues from a psychological perspective. There is the risk that a virtual world is so immersive that a person could be lost into it from a more digital perspective. Obviously, there needs to be a lot of studies in this because we're far away from getting to that. Not far away, but we are not there yet. But there is obviously research looking into what the effects are of someone who goes into more virtual world than the physical world. There are two aspects to it, to be honest with you, but there's the good and the bad, obviously.
Like in everything.
Yes.
How do you see the future of AI in the XR space?
So obviously there are a lot of things that one must consider. One of the things that for me is more prevalent is the fast-paced innovation in the generative AI space. Anyone nowadays can go on ChatGPT. If you have a ChatGPT Plus account, you can use the DALL-E model, and you can create images just by describing whatever you want to see. And I would speculate that in the next couple of years, we will see this translated also to 3D models, which will be more translatable in the space of XR. So I do see a future where the apps that work with extended realities would personally be personalized for the user, even from a generative artwork perspective. So there are quite a number of areas where AI would be able to improve the experience.
And from what you're saying, we're going to be seeing them more working together, the AI and XR, in the near future.
Definitely. There's a lot of space where they overlap. And there's a lot of space where AI will be able to make it easier for people to get into this space from a development perspective. If you look, for example, at augmented reality specifically, up to a couple of years ago, in order to develop an augmented reality app, you needed to have a heavy mathematical background, you needed to have a lot of skills in order to develop something like this. Nowadays, we have engines that do practically almost everything for you, and it is your creativity which limits you to what you can develop. And this is true also for virtual reality as well as mixed reality. So I'm envisioning that there will be much more on this as we go along.
Even the way you're explaining it and what you're bringing forward to us today, there are a lot of benefits when it comes to AI. This will be of a huge benefit if we had to sum it up, yes?
Definitely.
Are there any ethical concerns when blending AI and XR that you would say, let's...
So it's a loaded question. When I'm talking about AI specifically, you always have to make sure, let me take kind of a step back. When it comes to AI, we're always working with data. So as good as the data is, as good as the predictions, classifications, or whatever you're trying to do with AI, your result is going to be basically. If your data is not as good, then you will introduce something like a bias or something that will give you an incorrect result. Obviously, if you add that to extended reality, given that you are generating something that is visual, that you can see, there is always the risk from an ethical perspective that you generate something which is not ethically, let's say, savory, if you will.
When it comes to the industry, obviously, and tourism, it's one of the industries you work in, so obviously this you will be able to tell us more about it. How do you see the realities of both AI and XR integrated when it comes to the industry of tourism? We've seen some things, but I'm sure there are plenty more.
There are a lot more that we can do. Let's take, for example, museums. For someone like me who loves history, I love to go to a museum because I'm seeing some historical artifacts, something that probably I've read about before. So maybe as a nerd, I love that. But take someone who's still young, still learning about certain things, maybe is not that fascinated with the historical aspect. Being able to use technology such as extended reality and integrating AI with them, you can bring the museum to life.
Because one of the things people struggle with when it comes to history, if they don't have the love for it like you, is it's not easy to imagine. So you have to imagine everything. If we're talking on what happened many, many years ago, you need to always imagine. And when there is no vision, to certain people, it's not as enticing.
Yeah.
So they want to be able to see.
Exactly. Personally, one of the reasons why I like history is because I used to play Age of Empires back in the day. It was a strategy game that obviously involved a lot of historical elements, although it wasn't that accurate. As I grew older, I understood that. At the time, it was kind of a gateway for me to get into the historical part. And I think that technologies such as these are important, not just from an entertainment perspective now, but from an educational one. Because you are basically lowering the barrier of entry for children, for young adults, and even for adults to entertain themselves while they learn something new.
Exactly. And that would bring me to the games that children are playing nowadays. Not all of them are entertaining. They can be both entertaining and educational. Do you see any developments, maybe predict anything changes when it comes to education?
I do think that education, maybe not more than a prediction, I would say it's a suggestion. That from an education perspective, we need to embrace technology that we have today, and we need to allow students to learn the way that they are interacting with the world. So if students today are using this technology, then obviously it needs to be integrated.
Well, you are a parent yourself, and
Yes.
obviously there are many concerns when it comes to parents and their children using technology. How would you see this area when it comes to parenting and the safety of technology use, and also how it benefits them, because there are pros and cons to everything in life?
Yes. So I'm going to be very honest with you. With my daughter, I do allow her some time using technology, but for example, I wouldn't give her a tablet for a long period of time. In fact, I don't even give her a tablet at all. But at the same time, I have to be careful because children growing up nowadays, they have access readily to technology right off the bat. So
they are born ready.
They are born ready. So obviously, at the same time, you do have to allow them to use certain technologies, because if they don't, then that skill will not be learned. So, for example, when she's next to me, I give her my mobile and she starts to scroll, watches images, or play a game. But you have to limit, because at the same time, communication has to be done both physical and through technology.
Yes, the human element has to obviously remain present. Could you share an example of an innovation, something that happened throughout your career, your childhood, or obviously while you were working, that significantly impacted you when it comes to obviously something that transformed the landscape, something innovative that came through?
Given that we're
not ChatGPT.
Given that we're talking about two topics, I'll mention in both areas. So in the extended reality space, even in AI, to be honest, most people think that this is something that came up in the last couple of years. For example, the first kind of product, if you will, in the virtual reality space was invented in 1838 by Sir Charles, I forgot his surname, but this guy basically created a stereoscope, which was a device which could allow you to see an image from two different angles, and your brain would immerse both images into one, and you'd perceive depth. Obviously, it was nothing like we have today.
Of course.
But
when you consider the age.
Yes, yes. And then as years passed, decades passed, we had a lot of different devices being developed. But the issue always was that the hardware was not good enough. And for example, in the 90s, Sega released a headset at the time, and a lot of users were reporting motion sickness, and in fact, they removed it from the market, and it kind of died there. Then in 2012, you had Oculus starting with their Kickstarter, with their headset, and they managed to develop that. But for me, I think the turning point in the area was in 2014, when you had Google release the Google Cardboard. I was very lucky. I am one of the founders of the Google Developer Group in Malta. I managed this with Dr. Dennis Haker and Professor Alexei Dingley. And we managed to get our hands on a number of devices on cardboard headsets at the time. We started experimenting really early. We did workshops in Malta so that we allow a lot of users to test it out. And the thing with this was that up to that point, you had to buy not just a headset, but a very powerful machine in order to use the virtual reality experience. But what Google did was there were two Google engineers, I believe they were in the French engineers, and they basically got what they had in the office, and it was literally cardboard, and they created this headset that could be used with a mobile device, leveraging the gyroscope sensor within the mobile device in order to create a virtual reality headset. And this meant that anyone who had a device which supported that sensor could just spend 15 euros and buy this cardboard and use multiple apps which had VR already enabled and experience VR, while before you'd have to spend thousands of euros to be able to do that. I think that was a turning point in the area because it kind of democratized the use of virtual reality. In terms of AI, I know that you told me not ChatGPT, but from a research perspective,
I'm really trying hard here.
From a research perspective, obviously, there were a number of publications over the years. 1986, we had Geoffrey Hinton with artificial neural networks, propagation with Young and Kun in 1989 with convolutional neural networks. Most recently, we had Google State Machines. 2012, we had AlexNet for computer vision. These were all turning points in the area. But obviously, with ChatGPT, I can't not mention because it gave us one thing. Where before we were hearing about AI, where most people were seeing AI, people like myself in the area obviously knew what was coming. But for us, it was normal. It was our everyday life. But for most people, they couldn't really comprehend what use there was for AI. But now with ChatGPT, suddenly everyone is using it. So not just ChatGPT, there's Bard, there are other products. But it has allowed the general public to get a sense of what you can do with it.
Yes.
So I think that was the major turning point for the general public.
And public to know about AI, so we'll give you that, okay? One final and concluding comment from you for all the people who are seeking employment, seeking a study, seeking, I don't know, projects in XR and AI, but obviously I know we're focusing on both today, so I cannot not mention and leave out XR.
Yep. So if you're just starting out, I say two things. One, make sure you understand the technology. Although we do have engines which allow us to build stuff and prototype really quickly, I still believe that you need to know what's happening underneath the hood in order to progress. Another thing is that you have to be consistent. Your first product or your first idea is not going to work. 99.9% of the time, never works. You have to innovate, you have to continue trying to persist and continue creating new products until you get something that works. I always like to use the case of Rovio, which invented Angry Birds, which is quite
Everyone
a popular game. That was the 50-second game they created. So they did 51 games before that, which did not work, which didn't make it to production or was not successful. And it took them a lot in order to arrive where they are today. I mean, it's almost worth $1 billion, the company, so I think it was worth it.
Thank you for bringing that to us. I love hearing about these experiences because many a time we see the success of a person and we forget to focus on what they went through to get to where they are today. And I obviously love to hear about these, and thank you for bringing this reality as well to us. Thank you, Mark Bugeja, and thank you for watching us.